How do you feel about Ryan Cohen? I know there's some haters.
Yeah, I completely sympathize with the haters who don't like seeing the huge red candles down during a share dilution. Absolutely, fully understand the negativity surrounding that. But I think now, if we've learned anything from the past 6 months, and I hope we've learned things from 2020 and 2021 as well, but specifically now when Ryan's in charge and pulling the levers on these things, is that it's not a bad thing, and it can be transformation or transformative, excuse me, for your business, and specifically a business that is looking, in my opinion, to modernize. And when you think about gaming too, like if we even just zoom out, and it's not just Ryan Cohen, but it's gaming in general, one of the fastest growing places, dollars being spent like crazy, games being developed like crazy, hardware being developed like crazy, right? We zoom out and we think, what are the mainstays in gaming? And the first thing that I think of is GameStop, maybe GTA next, right? Like Fortnite now is carved out of space, right? But when you think of gaming, you think of GameStop. So yes, it sucks that he dilutes, but I think he's pointed. I think he's shrewd. I think he makes those hard decisions that a lot of people don't agree with. But now, as of late November, when you and I are talking, it has aged like fine wine. And I think it just getting that $4.20 billion in cash, the floor moves higher on the stock. It's easier to justify any M&A that they might be working on, or even if Ryan, who is one of the best investors of all time, by the way, look at the guy's portfolio and his returns, who would you rather have holding that money? No one. I mean, sure, Roaring Kitty, okay, it's a retail side of things, maybe, but Ryan Cohen really is that guy. So I have no problem with his dilutions. And as you and I are both aware of, he is authorized to do more.
Hmm.
And that is firmly on the table. And it's going to suck if it does happen, but it's absolutely a possibility. And we shouldn't just turn a blind eye to it.
What do you think he's? What is the money for? Like, obviously, no one knows except him and probably maybe a few
Well,
insiders. But like, what's the
you know,
what's it for?
it's a great question. And I think learning from, let's say, June of 2024. Okay. When Roaring Kitty was back, he was posting memes in like a 15-minute cadence. It was the best thing ever. He's super calculated. Every meme seemed to be speaking of some sort of timeline, right? And in that process, with the dilutions that we witnessed, we were all kind of thinking, at least I'm speaking for some of my followers on X, but we were kind of thinking, oh, this is probably going to be used to announce a merger and acquisition of some sorts during the shareholders meeting that was coming up in early June. But if you've been around GameStop, and this is not just exclusive to GameStop, shareholder meetings really, unless you're Tesla and Elon Musk takes over the shareholders call and starts talking about rockets, robots, self-driving cars, and all that other fun stuff that the stock likes to Aladdin and the other BlackRock algorithms somehow start ripping on in after hours,
Mm.
you know that you're not going to get much information on a typical shareholder meeting, at least from GameStop and a litany of other companies that are publicly traded securities.
Mm.
So the cash, to answer your question, the cash I would hope is either M&A of some sort eventually. And these things should not be overnight impulse decisions, right? That would be reckless. But if you find a way to acquire a hardware producing company, a company with good IP, something to that effect where they can really boost the revenue. And I will say they're doing a nice job of that. At least it seems in PSA and the card grading aspect of their business,
Hmm.
which certainly is a nice revenue stream. But I think I can speak for some of the community when I say that that's not really moving the needle when we think of $4.2 billion. We're not really thinking of grading cards and collectibles. And certainly that's going to be a good aspect for the bottom line and hopefully for Q3 earnings report, but not to the point where, oh my gosh, the mother of all short squeezes has been initiated because they're going into PSA. Like it's just not happening. So to answer your point, I hope they use it for some sort of shrewd investment like that. And worst comes to worst, if they are going to take the Tesla route or the MicroStrategy route, which again is at this point, Michael Saylor is so far ahead of everybody else. But to invest in crypto or to invest in something that could be a high yield investment certainly could boost GameStop's cash value to eventually get to a very high level of M&A where they do acquire something that is high revenue generating from day one.
So, do you think the Michael Saylor MicroStrategy thing is like to the people who are constantly plugging it in my feed and have been for 18 months or more? Ben Verman and uh Peruvian Bull, both of them
Yeah, I've
are
seen them
the
all.
yeah.
There's a lot of them now, though. You know, it's funny. It's like if we've
Oh,
learned anything too about the past 4 years,
Ben has been on this
like
for a long time.
yeah, like I love people with high conviction. So Michael Saylor, like that checks the box of like a leader. So I always, when I invest in something, and right now I'll just be candid, I'm fully ported in GameStop. So I really have no other time to really think about these other companies or what they're doing, but I do keep tabs on it. And a leader with a high level of conviction, like Saylor is very, very good if obviously you make the right bet, which in my opinion he has. But I do see shades of Ryan Cohen in that too, where that decision at one point in time was not popular. Okay, like if you remember the crypto winter, which lasted for what, like 18 months maybe, and everyone was we were all panicking and whatever. But that decision has aged beautifully. So if you wanted to go back to the share dilutions or leadership style, whatever you want, like Ryan Cohen checks that same box too. And that's another reason why I have full confidence that if he does continue to raise more cash at the expense of the shareholders right now, or at least in our portfolios, long term, we'll be sitting much better because of someone like that.
If they had already invested, when would they have to tell us?
Well, there's certain. So I was digging into this a few weeks ago, right? Because there was a lot. I don't know if you saw the post, but there was a lot of speculation, and the same thing happened. It's hilarious in June too. It's like we're living through the same timeline. Literally, we're just in November now, right? So, where people thought that the first couple dilutions were going to be used to invest in Bitcoin, right? Like that theory floated around then heavily too.
Yeah.
And so that filing, and I think I found it through Tesla, was released in their year-end 10K when they first bought their big chunk of Bitcoin. So I don't think you have to report that right away. You're not held to the same. I think it would be 4 days if it were some sort of thing that would affect the fundamental makeup, I believe is the exact language from the SEC, of your business. So I think if it was an M&A of sorts, that would have to be reported very quickly. Whereas if it's investing in a higher yielding asset, and you feel free to, anyone in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you have a longer runway there just from some digging I've done on companies that have done the Bitcoin thing.
Let's check. I'm gonna Google that, or I'm gonna grok it actually after.
Yeah, so I
point.
found it in Tesla's 10K, I believe. It might have been from 2020 or 2021.
When would a company have to declare they bought Bitcoin? Let's find out. Grok will give us the answer, or at least an answer.
And you should ask Grok too while you're at it. Why would a company CEO tweet and delete YOLO?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting question. I would say lawyers.
Yes, and I'm sure he got a message like 30 seconds after he posted that to delete that. So
they're saying in quarterly reports.
Okay, there you go. So it would be. I think we would have a little time there. Okay.
Interesting.
Yes. So again, but like I said, the point that I want to make is like, don't get your hopes up on that premise alone. Like there's more going on to the saga. It's probably a good transition to talk about Roaring Kitty too. There's way more going on to this saga and why I'm so entrenched in GameStop than just what Ryan Cohen is doing to transform the company, right? Like Roaring Kitty didn't come back for a burp to $60 and to bag everybody and say, okay, see you guys later. Like,
yeah, right. What is going on with Roaring Kitty? What do you think? And what is happening with the Treehouse Brewing Company? Like, what are they doing?
I mean, if you want to get straight into the tinfoil there, that one's weird. And I have spent way too much time, probably much to my family's chagrin, digging into any private investors of that brewery, like in some remote town in Massachusetts. Like I've dug into this, admittedly, and I have no shame saying that. I've spent quality time doing that. But I do think that it being his favorite beer certainly is interesting. Maybe he spent time talking to the owners of that brewery. Maybe he has been trading from a bar stool in that brewery. I mean, there's many things that could be. At the end of the day, I think I have to concede that they are genius at marketing. They are plugged into this cycle as well. Something about him drinking their beer has piqued their interest in this cycle. And maybe they do know a little something, and I hope they do. But if for nothing else, it's maybe the best example of grassroots or guerrilla marketing, I've seen in the past 5 years easily.
What if he bought the brewery?
I've thought about that, and it would be quite. I mean, for him and the amount of cash that he stacked up over the past 5 years,
Yeah, how much could it
I mean,
possibly be?
it wouldn't even make a dent, I'm sure, in his holdings. So it's possible, but I did look for literature on that, and I did not come up with anything in the business records.
Okay. Treehouse Brewing Company. It's got a Wikipedia page. Okay. Hang on, let me just pull this up for people so they can see what I'm seeing. Treehouse Brewing Company, 60 miles west of Boston. Non-distributing brewery, only available to buy on site.
Right. So what you just said, they're close to Boston. That checks one box, location. Yeah. And then two, only available to buy on site. He would have had to have been there in the past to buy the beer that he drank on his most recent live stream. So, again, this is a big reach. I know it's a big reach, but there could be something there. I don't think it's worth just dismissing it. In the same vein, honestly, there's people that dismiss FTDs. There's people that dismiss cost to borrow. There's people that dismiss all these things at face value. And it's like, if you've been around the GameStop saga, like nothing can be dismissed.
Hey everyone, thanks for making it right the way to the end of the podcast. I love that you tuned in this long. Do me a favor, hit subscribe, because 80% of you bastards are not subscribing, but you're watching my videos. See you next time.